Hello, welcome to Storytime by Kasper. Today's story is Finding Eliza by Stephanie Fishman. During the meeting, Lizzie enjoyed hearing stories of lost photos tucked into odd places and documents found folded into books long forgotten. With each item, the group discussed appropriate archival procedures. They seemed to all agree on the proper way to store and display vintage photographs. Yet tempers flared when the discussion turned to the use of linen gloves when handling materials. At times, the room seemed to be one hair shy of an argument. Lizzie never realised that genealogy could come so close to being a contact sport. Despite hearing their interesting stories, Lizzie couldn't keep her mind from wondering about the small leather book on the table in front of Blue. Finally her wait was over, thought Lizzie, as Blue started moving her chair in what she thought was an effort to stand in front of the group. To her disappointment, all her friend did was shift her body so she was sitting in a more comfortable position. Lizzie had to know the secrets that Blue held in that tiny, aged package. The longer she looked upon it, the stronger the desire grew. She couldn't head home without knowing what was behind the cover, even if she didn't understand why. Blue, honey, you haven't told us your story. Don't you want to share your book? Lizzie asked sweetly. Oh, darling, this isn't mine, it's your grandmother's. Blue's words took Lizzie by complete surprise. Before she could regain her thoughts, Gertrude was again addressing the group. Several years ago, I was going through some boxes that we packed up after Daddy passed away. Those boxes had been up in the attic for, oh goodness me, almost 2 decades untouched. Among other papers, I found this diary. I'd never known that my father was one to write his thoughts, and by the contents it's pretty clear he didn't intend on me knowing it. Well, not until his death. Gertrude walked over to the table and picked up the diary. She held it gently against her chest. Lizzie realised how emotional sharing the diary must have been for her grandmother. She couldn't recall another time when Gertrude was so soft-spoken. Gran, I never knew you had this, whispered Lizzie. Well, dear, there's a reason. This diary holds some important but difficult pieces of history. It also holds some secrets that I'm sure my father didn't want the whole town to know. I think it's the right time now. Since we're talking about protecting the items we discover, I want to ask a question of everyone in the room. What happens if you find something the original individual may not have wanted to stand the test of time? How do you handle the sensitive information that you come across in your research? Gertrude tossed the question out to the room. Only half listening to the discussion, Lizzie sat in shock, wondering why her grandmother had kept this secret from her. What on earth is inside that diary? Said Lizzie. Claude was the first to answer. Well, I suppose it's something you need to really think upon. For me, if the creator kept it hidden, who are we to make it public? Perhaps we should respect their wishes. Oh, don't be so nervous about it, Claude, answered Blue. I say, get it out into the light. Rip back the curtains. Secrets are only dangerous in the dark. You've got to expose the monster and slay it. Abby, as usual, tried to bridge the gap between the two ladies who stood on opposite ends of the discussion. Both have valid points. I think that the protection of the individual privacy is the main concern in a situation like this. Are those involved still alive? If they have passed, you must look at the immediate descendant for that answer. If they give the go-ahead, then shine light on the secret and take away its power, just as Blue said. That's exactly what I did, said Gertrude. Since this is my father's diary, I know that the individual in question is no longer living. I also know that the other individuals are listed in the diary have passed as well. I'm his only living child, so the decision falls to me. Well, to me and Lizzie. She grinned with pride as she gestured towards her granddaughter. who was finally in attendance. Lizzie felt drained. The revelation that her grandmother held a diary filled with emotional and difficult family secrets was almost too much to take in. Her imagination had spent the better part of the evening dreaming up fantastic scenarios for the diary. Each scenario had one important thing in common. It was supposed to be Blue's family story, not her own. Now that she was adding her family to the fantasy, she wasn't sure she wanted to know the truth. Without much prompting, the conversation began to wind down as the late hour approached. Several other women added their opinions on the importance of privacy versus discovery, but most concurred with Abby. Many commented they were glad for the opportunity to discuss something of a serious nature in their group. Once finished, they began gathering their materials and started saying goodnight to dear friends. Lizzie had already planned on staying behind to help her grandmother and the gals clean up the fellowship hall. Now it would take a team of Clydesdales to drag her from the church. She had to get her hands around that diary and her grandmother's neck. As the ladies milled around the coat room, gathering their belongings, Lizzie looked for Gertrude. "Gran, can we talk about this diary for a minute?" Lizzie whispered. She tried to act as if she were patient and not at all intrigued. "Genealogy isn't so boring now, is it?" Gertrude giggled as she packed up her display board and brochures. "This is just the beginning, dear." After the others had left, the gals gathered around a central table, making sure that everyone had a seat as well as a full view of the diary. Finally, the important conversation would start. "Gran, why didn't you tell me about this sooner?" asked Lizzie. "Sweetheart, I didn't realise you'd be as interested as you are in your great-grandfather's diary. I apologise. I thought bringing it out on your first gathering would get your attention, but I didn't think it would upset you. It was just a little bait for the hook. I guess I was right, wasn't I?" Gertrude slid the bound book across the table to Lizzie. "Go ahead, take a peek." Lizzie reached across the table for the diary. "Why do I feel as though you're a drug dealer hoping to start my addiction?" "My stars! Why do you have to be so crass sometimes?" Lizzie knew it was serious if her grandmother started scolding her, so she decided to focus on the information in front of her. She wasn't sure herself why she was so desperate to know the secrets of that little book. Once she felt the weight of it in her hands, Lizzie wasn't sure she was ready to open it. The diary itself was heavier than she thought. What if the contents were heavier as well? "Do you know what's inside?" Lizzie asked with trepidation. "Yes, I do," answered Gertrude. "I read it on my own and then I took it to the gals. We've all looked through it. It was part of me deciding what to do with the diary. Finally, just as Blue said, we decided it needed to come into the light so the secrets could no longer hold power or fear. The words written on these pages made it clear they held a great deal of both over my father. You're old enough to consult with now, so we're inviting you into our secret." "You're not asking for a blood oath, are you? Blue better not have a knife hidden up her sleeve." "Don't worry, sugar. I killed the chicken yesterday. You're in the clear," Blue said, nary a smile or a laugh. "Oh, Blue, I do swear," gasped Claude. Rolling her eyes, Gertrude continued, "I just want you to be prepared, sweetheart. As you read it, you should remember that these times were different. This diary will contain some things that are upsetting to you because they contradict your understanding of how we are to live. Are you sure you're ready to unlock that door?" "Gran, I think I can handle it." Lizzie was a little offended that her grandmother needed to ask these questions. After all, she was 32 years old. She had dealt with the deaths of both parents at the age of 12. She could handle anything as an adult. "Well then, by all means take a peek." Gertrude leaned back into her chair and crossed her legs. She sipped on her sweet tea and portrayed a cool exterior to match her granddaughter's attitude. "Welcome to the club," said Blue. "Let's just hope you know what you're getting into." To be continued.